Sorry, it's making me log in to see the questions again. I have to do it every time for some reason. All right. Bear with me here. I'm trying to get this to work. Where's the link? Sorry, I'm trying to get the questions pulled up because for some reason with I have not figured it out yet. I've been trying to figure it out. I don't know what the deal is. But for some reason, it will not when I'm connected to my Wi-Fi, it will not show the chat for some reason. I have no idea why. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't show the chat. Or it hasn't been showing the chat this week for some reason. Doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason to it. I haven't changed anything. I tried restarting my computer, resetting the router, all that stuff, but yeah, it still doesn't work for some reason. So we'll hopefully get her figured out soon. But yeah, let me get logged in on my phone that is not connected. It's not connected to my Wi-Fi. It's just connected to the 5G or whatever. All right. Should be good to go now. All right, let's see if we got any questions. All right, looks like we do have some questions in there. All right, first of all, just wanted to thank everybody for joining me. Sorry for the delay in getting started here, but thanks everybody for joining me. If you're not familiar, hopefully you can see the chat. And if you can see the chat, ask your questions. Now's a great time to ask because we are now live. I also want to note that you can ask your questions at any time. Where you can ask your questions are going to be, if you're on a larger screen like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. If you're on a smaller screen like a phone, it should be below the video. So that's where you're going to be able to ask your questions. Like I said, you can ask your questions at any time, 24/7, and you can get your questions answered live during the next office hours. You also don't have to be present live to see the answer to your question. You can just watch the archived office hours. So if you look below the video here, there should be a link to the office hours archive where you can see all the past office hours. So just want to backtrack here. All right, so that was from yesterday. All right, so Michael says, how do I find my natural hand position in the move for my driver? What is happening if I start blocking shots to the right? So I'm not sure what you mean by your natural hand position in the move. Not sure what you mean. Give me a little bit more detail there on what exactly you mean there. But let's talk about what's happening if you're hitting a block out to the right. So if it is a solid shot, meaning the ball, you don't feel a lot of twisting in your hands, you don't feel a ton of vibration, the ball almost feels like a marshmallow when you hit it, that means that you're hitting it solidly. If you're hitting it solidly, then that means that you are swinging too much into out. And your club face is also in that same direction. But mainly, you're just swinging too much into out if you're blocking your driver out to the right and you're hitting it solid. So it might go against what you think you should do, but you probably need to feel like you're more over the top, when in reality, you may not necessarily be. If you're really trying to shallow it and swing from the inside, then just tone it down a little bit if that's what you're trying to do. But if you are not trying to do that, you're just trying to make your normal swing, you're trying to swing on a plane down to the ball that's very neutral. And what I mean by that is a good way to think about it. I'm going to put this, imagine I'm hitting this ball, and this alignment stick here, let's say that alignment stick represents the target line. So if my club is working from inside that stick to outside the stick when I contact that ball, that's going to be an in to out path. And then if I work from outside the stick to inside the stick, that's going to be an out to in path. And then if I work from inside the stick, contact the ball, back to the inside of the stick, that means that my club path is going to be very neutral, pretty much a zero. And that's really where we want to be. We want to be very close to zero. That's where we can hit very straight shots. And even if you want to hit a draw, you're still going to be pretty close to zero. We don't want to be really far away from zero unless we want to put a ton of curve on the ball. But generally speaking, we just don't want to put a ton of curve on the ball. The best players don't curve the ball a ton. The best players really, they kind of hit the ball on a string. They curve the ball when they want to. And sometimes they curve the ball when they don't want to. You know, a lot of times when you see a tour player really curve a shot, it's either because they didn't mean to, or you know, they maybe didn't hit the best shot, they didn't strike it very well, or it could mean that they were trying to do that. But generally speaking, most shots that a pro is hitting, they're going to be less than 3 degrees into out or out to in. Their club face is going to be less than 3 degrees open or closed, and then the ratio of their face in their path is going to be less than 3 degrees. And if you have all of those things, you're going to hit it relatively straight, right? So assuming you hit the ball in the middle of the face. So what's happening with you, if you're blocking it out to the right and you're hitting it solidly, I'll talk about if you're not here in a second. But if you're blocking it out to the right, then that means you're just swinging too much into out, and you need to feel like you're more out to in. But I would say if you're trying, because a lot of people are really trying to swing into out a lot, and then they start hitting blocks, well, you're just overdoing it. It's like, you know, if you got a headache, you take some Tylenol. You don't want to take the whole bottle, right? So if you got a slice, you want to swing it out with a closed face, but if you overdo that, it's going to turn into blocks or hooks, right? So that could be what's going on there. The other thing that could be happening is, and that's why I made the caveat of, are you hitting it solidly, is you could be hitting extreme toe strikes. If these shots feel very weak and they feel terrible when you hit them, odds are it's a poor strike. So what I would recommend doing, get yourself some foot power spray it on the club face. This stuff right here works fantastically. This is Dr. Scholl's Odor X with Sweat Max technology. You can get this for $5 or $6 at Walmart. Any pharmacy is going to have that. There's other foot powder sprays out there. I've used several of them. And this one I find that just works the best. It just sprays on the nicest. There is another product that I really like for this as well. It's actually specifically for this. It's called Strike Spray. This works just as good as the Dr. Scholl's. The only difference is it doesn't really have any odor to it. It's pretty much odorless. The Dr. Scholl's foot spray has a little bit of the, you know, if you know what foot powder smells like, it has that odor to it. If you don't like that, then I would go with this. This is a little bit more expensive per ounce, and it's not something you can just go to the store and grab. They might sell it at golf stores, PGA Superstore or something like that. But I get it online. Amazon sells them. The only problem with it is you got to buy multiple. You can't just buy one can at a time. And cost per ounce is, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's pretty comparable to the regular foot powder spray. Anyway, moving on, I would recommend getting yourself some of that sprayed on the club face. I actually have some sprayed on this face here, so you can clearly see. You can see how that face might be a little bit hard to tell. Here, let me. This will be much easier to tell. So I actually have some sprayed on this driver as well. So if you imagine, like, the face of this driver is actually this color. It's a black face driver. You can very clearly see there's powder sprayed on here. So when you strike a ball with this, right? So let me kind of, I'll try to do it without actually. Yeah, that didn't work the way I thought it would. Because it has to kind of compress on the face. So let me kind of show you with a foam ball here. Perfect. So if I get a foam ball, there we go. Now you can see when that compresses on the face. Now you can clearly see where the strike is on the face. Right. So I definitely recommend doing that. I personally think that pretty much everyone needs to do some level of strike location training. Now, if you never miss the middle of the face, that's one thing, or rarely miss the middle of the face, that's one thing. You may not need to do a lot of it. But if you're a high handicap golfer, you're and even a middle handicap golfer, single digit handicap, if you're not a scratch golfer, you probably don't hit the ball in the middle of the face every single time. Or very low single digit, like 1, 2, maybe 3. So I would definitely recommend doing some strike training. I think everyone needs to. I actually saw some testing and research recently, or in the last year, that showed they tested golfers at different handicap levels and where they hit the ball on the club face, and the dispersion for like a 20 handicap was like, a lot of the face. It was over half of the face was being struck, right? And then you go down to a 10 handicap, and it's probably like a quarter of the face is being struck. And then you go down to like a scratch golfer and a pro golfer, and you can put a dime over their dispersion there. So I think it's a very key. It's a high correlation to the handicap level, right? I mean, it definitely goes with it, and it makes sense, right? Because what is also a high correlation to handicap level is distance. If we don't hit the ball a certain distance, we're going to have our time. If we don't hit the ball in the middle of the face, we're not going to be hitting the ball as far. It's also, it has a high influence on your distance and your accuracy. As we just talked about here, if I hit the ball extremely off the toe, so let's say I come in and I'm hitting this ball way off the toe. Well, this face is going to twist open, and that may make the ball block out to the right. But it's going to go out to the right because the face is twisting open, but it's also going to be very weak. It's not going to go very far. So very important to hit the ball in the middle of the face, because then the ball will go at least in the way that you're swinging. You could at least think you can make an adjustment to your swing to hit it better, because a lot of people are not hitting the ball in the middle of the face, and then they're hitting these bad shots, and they think, oh, I'm steep. I'm over the top. My face is open. My face is closed. When none of those things it's possible that none of those things could be happening. Now, it's possible that those things can definitely be happening. Those things can definitely be true, but oftentimes they're not. And a lot of times you're just not hitting the ball in the middle of the face. So I highly, highly recommend you definitely check this. Use the foot power spray, check it, and train it. Just to go over a very simple thing you can do to train it would be, I'm going to put 2 alignment sticks here, and you want to put the alignment sticks, you want to make them about a 1/4 inch, I would say, on each side, wider than the club head. So if I kind of look down at this, I want to see about a 1/4 inch between them, right? I'm going to put the ball right in the middle of it. There we go. And then I'm just going to hit shots and avoid hitting the sticks. Right. So this is one that you can do. If you have a big bias, so let's say you do the foot power spray thing and you look and you see, oh, I'm hitting everything off the heel. Then what I would do is I get rid of this stick for now, and I would move this one a little bit closer, basically make it to where, and what also with this, a lot of people, they'll put it to where it's right up there touching it. And if you do that, you're not giving yourself any margin for error. And also, when you're coming through, the part of the stick, when it's going into the ground, it's going to hit here. It's not going to hit down here. So you need to make it the full width of the club head that'd be going down into the ground there. So that's why I kind of like to lay it like this and then line it up with the center of the face. So now when I hit this ball, I know that if I hit that stick, I know that I might be a little bit in the heel. So I want to hit this ball without hitting that stick. And if I hit it on the toe, that's actually good, because I'm trying to train and get away from hitting it in the heel. So I would actually do a drill where you go 10 times. You got to go 10 in a row where you hit that ball without hitting that stick. And you know what? You might not be able to accomplish that in one practice session. And that's okay. You try it again the next time. But that would be kind of the goal there. And then once you're able to do that, then you put in the other stick and then try to avoid hitting both of them. But that would be a great drill to do. So those would be the things I would check. Swinging too much from the inside, and or you're hitting it too much on the toe, most likely, and that's causing the flare out to the right. All right, let's keep going here. All right, so that was Michael. All right, so we got Greg says, hey, Q, is shallowing the club having the shaft be very close to the shaft angle set at address? Video of my swing shows my club shaft well above the shaft at address. I run a line through the shaft at address on the video. No, that is not what shallowing means. And also, you're going to be above it because when you set up at address, right, your arms are going to be kind of hanging downward, right? And then when you come into contact, or when you're swinging the club's almost like an extension of your arm. So that's actually going to get the handle a little bit higher. That's why when you set up at address, the toe is typically up in the air, right? The toe is typically going to be a little bit up in the air. And then when you come down into contact, because the club's more of an extension of your lead arm, that gets that club more flush to the ground. And also, the club will deflect more toe down as well as it's coming through contact. So you can imagine if I were to bend this shaft like that, that's what the shaft is doing through contact. So that's making the toe go down a little bit. So that's why you're going to be a little bit toe up at address typically, because you're not in the full arm, lead arm, fully extended position like you would be at impact, right? You're going to be very close to that. You may not be exactly that, but you're going to be very, very close to that. So that's not what shallowing is. Shallowing is the mass of the center mass of the club, which we won't get into all that. It gets a little bit sciencey, but we'll just say for simplicity, let's just say the club head, all right, is the club head trailing the direction of the force, which we'll say there is the direction that the grip is moving, right? So my hands are on the grip, my hands are applying a force, that force is going in a direction, and the club head is trailing that force. That's what shallowing is, right? So if I'm like this, that would be steep because my hands are going to be going out that way, and the mass is over here. I need to have it over here, right? So now my force is kind of going more that way, and it's underneath it, right? So if you kind of think of like this, you could think of this, the stick being the direction of the force, right? So let's say that, let's actually have it that way, like this. So let's say that this stick represents the direction of the force, right? It's going in that direction, and this would be the line extended out from it. And this club is underneath it, that would be shallow, right? So now if it's like that, if this is now the direction of the force and now my club is like that, it's actually steep to it, right? That's steep. So that's really what shallow is. It's not what you described there is just the shaft plane line is what a lot of people call it. To be honest with you, it doesn't really have much relevance in the golf swing. I don't. You can use it as a, you can use it as a marker for some things maybe, but I don't really use it at all. One that I do use is one that goes from the ball up through the middle of the elbow, and generally that's going to be pretty close to the force, right? And if I have the club underneath that means that it's going to be shallowing. If my club is above it, it's going to tend to be steep. So that's the line that I would look at. And keep in mind that the camera angle plays a huge role in this. If your camera angle is not correct, you're gonna get false information, which obviously we don't want, right? So what you want to make sure of when you're videoing your swing is that you set the camera up lined up down your toes. You want to be able to, when you line up the camera, if you draw a vertical line on the screen, you want to be able to have both toes touching that line. So if you were to draw a vertical line straight up and down, And if you use an app like OnForm, as soon as you start drawing a line, it tells you the degree that it's at. So if you start drawing that line from the tip of the toe down to there, if the back toe isn't touching that line, then you're not down the toe line. So let's say that this alignment stick represents that line that I was talking about. Well, a lot of people, when they set up the camera, they set it up right behind the golf ball, and that's the wrong camera angle, right? So that's gonna make it look like you are more shallow or less steep than what you actually are. So that's why it's important. So make sure that it's down the toe line just like this. Very simple way to do it is just take an alignment stick, put it on the ground, point it at a target, point it at your target out in the distance, wherever you're hitting at, then take your camera and line it up to where it's straight up and down vertical to this is straight up and down vertical on the screen. And then when you go to hit the ball, just have your toes up there really close to it, within an inch or two of it. And then you'll have a good camera angle. So you want to have the camera angle lined up down the toe line. You want it at hip level. So if it's too high, it's going to throw things off. If it's you don't want to take a video from it sitting on the ground, it's going to throw it off. So you want to make sure. What I recommend is like a tripod that holds your phone. You can get these on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. There's also expensive stuff like iRange Sports. They make awesome stuff. It's just more expensive, but it works great. But you can get cheaper stuff online on Amazon. If you just search tripod with phone mount, you can find $20 options. And it comes with a cheap tripod, but you don't need anything fancy or expensive for this. We're not holding the fancy camera or anything. It's just your phone, right? Then it comes with a phone mount, and then you just hold that holds your phone. And OnForm is fantastic because it has, if you have an iPhone, it has an auto detect feature. So you don't have to push the button, go take your swing, go turn it off. You can do that. It has manual mode, but it has the auto detect where you make a swing. It just detects that you made a swing somehow. I don't know exactly how it works, but it detects that you made a swing. It videos it, and it automatically trims it. And then you can select it right away and look at it. So yeah, get something like that. Don't put the phone on the ground. Don't ask someone to hold it because if you have somebody hold it, how's everyone going to hold their phone? They're going to hold it like this, right? So they're going to hold it at the wrong height. They also may not hold it at the right angle, and they also may not hold it still. So if you use a tripod, now you have power over where the camera is, and you put it in the right spot, you put it at the right height, and you're going to be good to go. So you want it down the toe line, hip level, and then far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame. So what that means is you can't have it to where the club's going, you can't hardly see the club throughout the entire swing. So for example, like this camera angle right here, my legs are cut off, right? When I go up to the top of the swing, my club's out of the frame, right? So it's just too close. You're not going to be able to evaluate very well what's going on because you're just too close. So if you follow those rules when you're videoing your swing, from down the line, down the toe line, hip level, far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame, you're going to get great camera angles every single time. And it's the same thing for face on. The only difference is just where you're lining up the camera. So the hip level and far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame, they both apply here. The only difference is that where I'm lining up the camera, I want the camera to go straight through the center of my body, right? Straight through the center of my body here. And perpendicular to my toes, right? So if you imagine a 90-degree line a line from my toe line here that's created from my toe line that's 90 degrees or perpendicular to this line. That's really how you're going to get good camera angles. If you have it too far in front or too far that way, it's going to throw off what you're looking at. So when you're working on your swing, you want to be able to look at it and be able to compare apples to apples. If you have a different camera angle every single time, you may be making progress on what you're doing, but it may not look like it because of the camera angle, or vice versa. You may not be making any progress, and then the camera angle makes you think that you are. So that's why it's important to kind of set it up the same way every single time. And that's the way that I recommend setting it up. All right, let's keep going here. So yeah, that's what shallowing is just getting the basically the mass of the club head to trail the force of the hands, the direction of the force of the hands. And what I'd recommend using is using the shallowing line, draw it from the ball through the middle of the elbow with a good camera angle. And then what you'd want to see is you'd want to see that club tracking just underneath that line all the way down until it gets to the ball. And then you want it to kick out to the ball. The reason why you want it to the force to trail the hands is because, one, you're going to have more control of it when you do that. And two, it's going to kick out to the ball for more speed, right? Because this is wanting the mass here is wanting to line up with this, right? So if you imagine this here, you may have seen a video where Clay did this. If you're a founding Toss Golf member, we did videos like this back in the day. But basically, if you imagine I were to pull this handle in the direction of this stick here, so I pull it in that direction. What does this club head want to do? It wants to line up with that, right? So that's the same thing that's happening in the golf swing. It's like water skiing, right? The water skier wants to line up with the direction of the boat, right? Well, you can swing the water skier out and it can pick up speed. And that's basically what we're doing in shallowing is we're shallowing, and then that club kicks out to the ball as we're turning around the corner. That helps you to create speed, and you have control of what you're doing. So that's why it's important to shallow out the club. That's why the best players do it. All right, so what are some setup keys for hitting the driver off the deck? I mean, I would just hit it just like you would your fairway wood. If you don't have a lot of speed, it's going to be difficult to hit a fairway wood or hit a driver off the deck. It's just not going to get off the ground very much. And if you don't have a very high lofted driver, it's just not going to get off the ground very much. So what I recommend is basically maybe trying to hit a little bit of a fade with it. Put the ball, play it just like you would essentially your 3-wood, maybe a little bit forward in the stance, and try to feel like you're hitting a fade with it. The reason why is because hitting a fade adds a little bit more loft. It's very difficult to draw. I mean, you can. It's just not going to have a lot of loft on it when you hit it. It's just not going to get in the air very much. And in order for the ball to go somewhere, it needs to get up in the air some, right? And if you don't have a lot of club head speed, if you don't have a high lofted driver or a lot of club head speed, driver off the deck really isn't that great of an option. But it's really something you kind of have to learn by doing. So what I would say is play around with it. Recommend trying to hit a fade. You're going to have to hit down on it. You're going to have to feel like you're hitting down on it. Drivers aren't meant to be hit off the ground. I know we see a lot of tour players kind of doing it now, but they're hitting it low on the face. It will go slightly farther than like a 3-wood just because it has less loft. But if you don't have a lot of club head speed, it's going to be difficult to do. So not generally, it's a high degree of difficulty shot. Not something I generally recommend for recreational golfers unless you have like a high lofted driver that you can easily get up in the air. More than likely, it's probably going to be easier for you to hit a fairway wood that's meant to be hit off the ground. But yeah, I would just try to hit a fade with it is the main thing I would say, so we can get a little loft in there. All right, keep the questions coming. Got plenty of time here. I'll stay on here till 4 o'clock. Sticks away. All right, let me refresh this feed, see if we got any new questions in here. All right, so nothing new. So while you guys are coming up with questions, I'm just going to refill my drink here. come up with some other stuff to talk about here. So I had a student who was struggling with distance control with putting. So we can talk about that a little bit. What basically I told him to kind of recommend that he does, because I looked at his putting stroke and honestly it looked pretty good, um, and didn't really see any issues there. His setup and everything was good. He wasn't moving around. He was really kind of rocking his shoulders nicely. He even, his head was like down for a long time after he putted it and everything. Everything looked very good from a look standpoint, right? Now, sometimes I run into things, and I told him this. It's like when you're at work, you're in your cubicle maybe, and the boss walks by, you probably are doing your best work at that time, right? You're not goofing off or, you're doing the job right. And sometimes that happens with online lessons where I'll have a student send me a video and you can tell they're just making sure everything is good and all that stuff. Well, what we're interested in seeing is what's kind of happening similar to what's happening on the course, right? So, and I only know this because I've had a few experiences where I have somebody that does lessons with me or somebody that did lessons, a friend of mine that maybe sent me a video, and then we go play golf and he's not doing what he was doing in the video. And it was actually a putting one. He sent me a putting video and like everything looked fantastic. And then we go to play golf and I'm watching him putt and I'm like, that's not what you sent me. That's not even close, to what he sent me. So some of it comes down to focus and intention and things like that. So if you're really struggling with something, think about what your routine is, kind of what you're going through with the shot. And if your mind is somewhere else, you're having a conversation with somebody, you're blah blah, and your goal is to play your best golf. Those aren't going to really go well together. So now, if you're out and you're just in a social situation and you're just playing golf, then your expectations have to be lower in making putts or putting very well. So definitely want to think about that. So I told him, like, always have the mindset that the boss is watching. So that could be part of it. But everything, some people think that everything is just technique. It's not always about technique. In fact, oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes it's not about technique at all. Now, sometimes we can make technique tweaks that help or apply some feels that can definitely help. But a lot of times it's not about technique at all. A lot of times, especially in putting, whenever I'm giving putting lessons, I typically see the technique is pretty good. There's not really a big problem there. And that's not always the case, but a lot of times the technique there is pretty solid. It's really just a feel issue. It's an awareness issue. It's an ability. It's a skill issue. So really what we have to do a lot of times, what a lot of people work on when they practice is almost entirely technique. And it should really kind of be the opposite. It should be mostly skill driven stuff and then some technical stuff sprinkled in there. And you only really have to work on technique if you have something you have a technique that is just making it to where you can't hit the ball well. So moving away from putting for a second, let's say you're coming way over the top and steep. Well, that's a technical thing that you're going to have to change in order to hit good golf shots, right? But I have students all the time that have great technique. They're nailing all the pieces of the top speed golf system, but yet they're 15, 18 handicaps, right? And it's because all they work on is technique. They don't work on any skill stuff. So really the majority of what you work on should be skill related things. So I'll go over a couple of the putting drills that I did and a couple of these that I really like. So We also talked about mindset because he was struggling with speed control. He didn't say specifically if it was longer or shorter putts, but I will say for longer putts, a lot of people's mindset is not correct. So a lot of us grew up with the mindset, hey, you're going to miss 100% of the putts that you leave short, and that is true. But I would only really have that mindset for 15 feet and in. Make sure you get it to the hole on a 15-foot and in putt. To a certain extent, not so much that I'm going to roll it by 5 feet, but you definitely want to make sure that you get it to the hole. That's the mindset there. Now, for a longer putt, because we have to realize once we kind of get into that 20-foot range, the way that the ball rolls on the green, it can roll very differently from putt to putt. There's machines out there that will, or not machine, just like basically like this little ramp thing that will roll the ball the same way every single time. Every single time it will roll the ball the same way. And, I think a lot of people, you've probably seen these tests where, it's a 20-foot putt. They roll the ball on there the same way, and it's a different result. One of them leaves short left. One of them's long right. One of them's right in the middle. One of them, and that just goes to show you that when we get farther away, we're not putting on a perfect surface. We're not putting in perfect conditions. There are things that can happen over that 20 feet that can make the putt veer off in different directions. So that's one thing that we have to consider when we're putting. So when you get to that 20-foot range, really your mindset needs to be in getting it in a 3-foot circle around the hole. So it's like that chipping mindset where we're trying to get it in that 3-foot circle around the hole. You want to have that same mindset for lag putting, 20 feet and beyond. Because if you have the mindset, hey, I'm going to make sure that I get the ball to the hole no matter what. Well, let's say that on a 30-foot putt, you have a 6-foot dispersion in the length of the putt, or how far you're putting it, right? So let's say you attempt to putt 30-foot putts, right? A bunch of 30-foot putts, and then you find that all of your shots are kind of within, other than maybe a couple outliers, are within like a 6-foot range. That'd be like your dispersion. Well, if you have the mindset that, hey, I'm going to get every single ball to the hole, then you're going to have comebackers that are much more than 3 feet. And you're going to tend to three putt more often. You're also going to tend to have the ball moving too fast a lot of the time at the hole, because the capture speed of the hole, the capture width of the hole, gets a lot smaller as the speed goes up, right? It might be if you have a 6-foot dispersion on those, if the ball would go 6 feet by the hole, if it could hit right through the middle of the cup, and it may not even touch it. It may just roll right over it. So you're going to have no chance at making those putts, even though you made sure you got it there. So if you have this mindset that, hey, I'm going to make sure I get it in a 3-foot circle, right? I'm imagining a 3-foot circle. I'm okay with a putt that is 2 feet short, 3 feet short, because that's a good putt. One, you're going to have less 3 putts. So overall, you're going to have less putts. And then you're also going to have more 1 putts, most likely, because when the ball is moving slower at the hole is a lot bigger, right? So if we have the mindset, hey, I'm essentially trying to die this in the hole, then you're going to make more putts because of that. So, or you probably will make just as many, if not more, than you would have had you made sure you're getting it to the hole. So you're going to avoid the 3 putts, and then you're most likely going to have more 1 putts because the ball is moving slower. So make sure that you have that mindset on those putts, so that way you can be a much better lag putter. So let's talk about one of the drills. One of my favorite drills. If you've done the Top Speed Golf putting system, you've probably seen this drill. Calls it the ladder drill. A lot of pros do this drill. Basically, all it is I have this ball right here. That's going to be the initial ball that I'm rolling to. And what you can do is you can just take like a tee and put it in the ground at your starting point. So if you imagine like there's a tee right here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to. This has nothing to do with direction. This is all about speed. I'm just going to try to get this ball to roll as close up to this ball as it possibly, as close to that ball as you possibly can without hitting it. All right. So let me give that a try here. Again, this is not about direction or anything. It's literally just about putting the right speed on it. So that's pretty good there. I got it up to about an inch. That's about as good as I can do. So now the ball that I just hit to, I'm going to roll that back to my starting point, right? Again, there'll be a T there, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to keep doing this until I either go past it. Basically, I'm going to keep doing it until I go past it. All right. So now, and I'm going to count the total number of putts that it takes. And the idea here is to get as many putts as you can without rolling past it. I didn't roll past it, so I'm gonna count that. All right. So now I'm up to 3. It's cutting it a little close on the last one, so I got to make sure. There we go. 6 inches short. That's not too bad. So that was the 4th putt. Now I'm on the 5th putt. All right. Again, about 6 inches short. Now I'm on the 6th putt. I'll kind of make this one go to the right a little bit so I'm not getting too. All right. So that was the 7th putt. I'm on the 8th putt. Pretty good. Now I'm on the 9th putt. So I think you get the idea. I'm trying to fit as many balls as I can. So I keep doing that until I fail, and now that's my score. So this does several things. This follows the principles that you need to have when you're practicing anything. All right. So the principles are. We need to be working on something specific. What is the specific thing that I'm working on? It's speed control. All right. That's the specific thing that I'm working on. It needs to be measurable. Right. So this is measurable because I'm counting the total number of reps that it's taking me. So I have some gauge of knowing if I'm getting better or not. Right. So that's why whenever you have a drill of any kind, you want to try to gamify it in some way. So that way you can kind of keep track. Okay, what's my ability level? It's like lifting weights, right? If I'm lifting weights, if I just lift the same weight all the time, well, eventually, in the beginning, it might be difficult. And then it's going to become a lot easier. Well, if you just practice lifting a weight that's super easy and you don't increase the reps or increase the weight to make it more difficult, well, you're going to plateau your skill level. You're going to plateau your strength. So the same thing goes when you're working on skill type drills like this. You need to have a way to measure what you're doing, right? So that's why I definitely recommend gamifying a lot of stuff. It also just makes it a lot more fun. I don't know about you. I'm a competitive guy. I like to compete, not only against others, but like within a game like this, trying to beat my old score, right? So yeah, you could have it. Make sure that you keep track. Like, okay, I'm starting at 10 feet because it's going to be easier if you have a 20-footer and you do this, right? You're going to be able to fit more putts into a 20-footer. So that's not compared. If you do it from 10 feet, it's not going to be as comparable. So yeah, that in the ways that you can make it increasingly more difficult would be put it on a slope, right? Have a slope where you have to get it right, and things like that. So lots of great ways to do this drill. You can also kind of do it back and forth. So you can have it where I put the ball that way, and then I put the ball back this way. You can do it that way too. But that's one of my favorite ones because it really, really helps you to dial in that speed control for those putts. Now, for longer putts, if you're wanting to do that, you can do this for longer putts as well. I mean, you can do this with that. You can start with 50 feet and kind of bring it in to where you're going with shorter and shorter putts. But really, I just kind of like to do this, 15 feet in for the most part. For longer putts, Really, I think the best way to kind of practice that and to have as much transference to the course is to uh, basically go to your practice putting green. And this is kind of the way that I like to practice it is you're going to have, you could have like 20 putts that are with between 20 feet and 60 feet, right? And you just pace them off and then you just play the hole from there. Go through your routine, play the hole, pick a different hole every single time. Don't go uphill twice in a row. Do one uphill, do one downhill, do one side hill. This is really going to help you to get transference to the golf course, um, because you're essentially doing what you'd be doing on the golf course. So that's the way I like to kind of train lag putt, and then you just keep score, right? Everything's a par two, and you try to get to see if you can beat your score, and you go from there. And you could just have a list of distances that you do it at, and I would mix up the distances. So don't start at like 20 feet and then do 24 feet, then do 27 feet. You can start at 20 feet, but then the next one should be like 30 feet. And the next one should be maybe like 25 feet. Then the next one might be 55 feet. Really try to like mix it up. You can even have like a random generator that kind of tells you the length. Just tell it there's apps out there that you can use that, hey, I have a range of numbers. I want you to give me a random number in that range. And it just gives it to you. And then you just go do it. And the way that I do, I just step it off, right? So for me, one big step is 3 feet, right? So typically, if I go from my heel to my toe, if I just take a step, that's about 3 feet, right? And it doesn't have to be exact, but it's about 3 feet. So if I have a 3-foot putt that I'm doing, I'm just going to go like that, and I'm gonna do it from. So if the hole is like there, I would do it from my toe. Right? If I have a 4-foot putt, it's going to be my foot and another foot. If I have a 5-foot putt, it's going to be 2 steps and then it's my heel. Right? So that's a way that you can kind of, and again, it doesn't have to be exact. I didn't take a tape measure out and measure my shoe to make sure it was exactly a foot. But if I'm using my feet every single time, it's going to be consistent. And if I measure it the same way every single time, it's going to be consistent. So don't get caught up in the details. It has to be exactly 20 feet or 30 feet or anything like that. Just step it off to get close enough. So I know if I want a 30-footer, it's going to be 10 steps. If I got a 32-footer, it's going to be 11 steps. And then I'm putting it at my heel, right? So you're getting very, very close, when you're doing that. So that's the way I would recommend practicing that. That's typically, for speed control, that's great. That's not only great for speed control, but it's also great for direction, reading the putts. You're going through your routine. You're doing all of that. So that's why I like that. And you can do that not only for lag putts, but you can do that for any length of putts. I actually recommend doing that for your 15 feet and in. So you can do it from 4, and that one you can do in order. So you can start at 4 feet. Go through your routine. Putt the ball, then go to 5 feet. Go to a different hole. Go to 5 feet. Different hole, different angle. Make sure it's not 2 uphills in a row, two down. Make sure that it's a very different putt. So that way you are able to adapt much more easily to what's going on the golf course, because that's it's going to be similar to what's going on the course. Let's see if there's any new questions here. Bear with me. I'm just checking to see if there's any new questions. All right. So goes on to say, for wet or packed sand traps, what should you do to hit a high spinning shot? Well, you actually aren't going to have to do really just the technique that you're going to have to use to hit out of that kind of bunker. You're going to get a fairly spinny kind of shot. It might be difficult to get it high just because you may not be able to open up the face as much. So what I would say, if you want to hit it high, make sure you're using your highest lofted club. But the way I answer this question a lot, I get it a lot. So the way that I typically answer it is to go over what a normal bunker shot would be first. And then you're just making adjustments from a normal bunker shot, which would be typical fluffy kind of sand, You just make adjustments from that to what a wet bunker would be. So what you would do for a normal sand shot, you're gonna take your highest lofted club. If you're hitting out of a green side bunker, and what I typically recommend is to find out how far you hit your highest lofted club, so that way you know that, hey, if I have a bunker shot that's more than this distance, then I need to step up and maybe not use my lob wedge, maybe use my sand wedge loft instead, or my gap wedge loft, or a pitching wedge, right? So because that less loft and the little bit more speed that you're going to get from a longer club is going to help you to hit it a little bit farther. But let's just assume this is kind of a shorter, standard greenside bunker shot, not a long one or anything like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your highest lofted club. You're going to open up the club face. And the club face is going to be opened up anywhere from like 30 to 45 degrees, right? Then for the setup, what I like to have people do is to get a nice wide stance. The reason for that is to give you some good stability. We want a nice solid base. Sand is not a stable surface, right? So if we get a nice wide base, we have a better chance of being in good balance and staying stable. I also like to have people kind of push the knees out and shift the body forward. So we want to feel like we're really very stable. Our legs are very heavy and kind of locked, and not a lot of play in the legs, right? Because we want to be precise with where we're hitting the sand. All right. Ball position is typically going to be pretty far forward. The way I like to look at it is that I want to enter the sand about halfway in the middle of my stance. Pretty close to that, maybe a little bit forward to the middle of my stance. So the ball is going to be, about 4 inches in front of that. So if the middle of my stance is right here, I'm going to have the ball about, 4 or 5 inches in front of that. And again, I'm forward. My face is open. You can have the hands really low if you want, and that can actually help you to hit the ball higher, because when you lower the hands, it adds more loft. The other thing that lowering the hands does is it squares up the face. So when you open the face, that's gonna make the face point to the right. But if I open it and lower the hands more, that's actually gonna make the face square up. So if you ever notice, you watch a tour player on TV, a lot of times they do it with the technique with the hands a lot lower, and you'll notice that a lot of times the face will be wide open, but the ball will kind of go straight where their feet are pointed, right? Well, that's because if I'm like this and then I just open up the face, you can see how that points it to the right a little bit. So if I lower my hands, now you can see how that squares that up. So if I can come into contact with that, then with my hands low, then I'm going to be able to kind of have the face square. That's optional. I'd say if you want to hit it higher out of the bunker, you probably want to do that, but you want to make sure that you stay low, because if you just set up with low hands and then you stand up out of it, it's the end result is the same as just standing up to begin with. So you kind of have to make sure that you're staying low. Now, I will say, when we get the hands lower, people's tendency is to swing flatter, right? Because this just makes having it right here just makes me want to swing it flatter like this. And that's not what we want to do out of the bunker. We actually want to swing more steeply into the bunker, because we need the club to get into the sand. And we use the bounce of the club to get it to glide through the sand and get underneath the ball and get it out. So if you're going to lower your hands, you want to make sure that you're essentially kind of bringing this club up and down on the ball, or down into the sand. We don't want it to swing really around our body and really shallow like that out of a greenside bunker, because that technique is going to tend to lead to chunks, and it's going to tend to lead to the club getting into the sand too early, and then it comes out of the sand and scolds it or something like that. So normal bunker shot, again, wide stance, weight forward, knees kind of spread out apart from each other, kind of locked up, face open. And we want to take like a steep swing, and we want to drop that club right behind the ball. Normal sand bunker, typically it can be anywhere 3 to 6 inches behind. We want to do it with some speed. Now, if we have a wet and packed bunker, we have to tone down on some of the bounce stuff because the bounce makes it want to come up out of the sand. Well, if I have a hard or packed bunker, that in and of itself is going to make the club want to come out of the sand. So we want to tone down on some of those things. So one of the things that we tone down is opening up the face. You don't open up the face quite as much. Now you can still have it a little bit open. Now the thing here is not all wet sand bunkers are going to be created equal. So I can tell you how to do this, but you may go do the exact same thing I tell you to do here, and it may not work out because your sand might be like concrete, or it's just a little wet and it's still pretty soft. So really what I'm telling you here is you're gonna not open up the face some amount. I don't know exactly how much. It really depends on how wet or packed or hard the bunker is, right? You're also going to hit closer to the golf ball. So the golf ball isn't going to be as far forward in your stance. It's going to be a little bit closer because you have to hit a little bit closer to it. Generally, 2-3 inches behind the ball will still work out good unless it's just rock hard. In that case, it may not be hardly any, right? And then you also will not swing quite as hard because you're catching more of the ball when you do this. And when you catch more of the ball, you're going to get more spin. So you're going to get the spinniness. It's not going to come out as high. If you want it to come out higher, make sure you're using your highest lofted club. Make sure you're opening up the face as much as you can, but not so much that the bounce is too much there and making the club come up out of it or making the – I will say you can open up the face a lot, but you're just going to have to hit a lot closer to the ball. So you're bringing in you're getting less margin for error. It makes it more difficult, right? So yeah, you got to go practice it. A way you can practice it, typically if your bunkers are not always wet and packed down, your practice bunker typically isn't going to be like that. If it is, just go and practice in it and adjust things, play around with how open the face is, play around with how hard you're hitting it to get it to go a certain distance, play around with where you're hitting the sand. Make sure that you are putting a line next to the ball, so that way you can see where the club is entering the sand in relationship to the ball. Because a lot of times people will struggle out of the bunker, and it's just because they're just hitting way too far behind the ball. So make sure you have some sort of reference there. So what you can do is, let's say I'm hitting the ball that way. This is the ball that I'm hitting, and I can put a line in the sand like right there that's even with the back of the ball. So that way I can see, okay, where am I entering the sand in relationship to that ball? Or what you can do is you can maybe know, like, hey, I want to hit the sand 3 inches behind the ball, draw a line, and then see where you're hitting in relationship to that line. So definitely recommend doing that. But let's say it is a fluffy bunker, right? And you just want to practice hitting at a wet bunker. Bring a water jug, pour some in there, see how it does. Pour more in there, pack it down, see how it does. Pour more in there, pack it down some more, see what it does. Because that's really how you're going to learn how to do it, is to learn by doing. So that's the technique of how you do it. But to get good at it, you got to go practice it. All right, let's see if there's any more questions here. And sorry. Yep, that was the last one. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time.